project failure rates are too high across the industry. We all watch these statistics, and in some sectors they have improved slowly over the years, but they're still not good enough. Hi, my name is Stuart Easton. I'm the CEO of Transparent Choice, and I'm glad you could join today's webinar because I'm going to share something that many, if not most, PMO leaders miss: the direct link between good quality project prioritization and project success. Now, I know your time is valuable, so I'm going to try and keep this down to less than 10 minutes. So everyone has an opinion on why projects fail, but I want to focus today on some key factors that come up again and again and again. In fact, they're on all of these top 10 causes of project failure lists that I've found in just a few minutes online. Now, the four I want to focus on are having too many projects, poor executive sponsorship, scope creep, and poor strategic alignment, which is kind of weaved into the other three actually. So let's focus on these ones because they really are on every top 10 list. Now we all know why overcommitment leads to project failure. Your team is stretched too thin, and the irony of this is that trying to do too many projects actually reduces the amount of resource that you have to deliver those projects, because your people end up time slicing, and that's a really inefficient way to work. So even though everyone knows this, most organizations we speak to have a real problem getting this right. Now, why is that? Well, really it's down to visibility. If you're managing your prioritization process in spreadsheets or through PowerPoint presentations, it's really hard to visualize which projects add the most value and to actually get out and make those hard decisions. Now, with Transparent Choice, things are very different. Because the executive team can see which projects deliver the best value for money, and they can see at the same time, they can see the budget and capacity constraints, it's very easy for them to pick a right-sized portfolio. They can see when they add something if it blows the budget, for example. Now, when you do this, even pet projects, so that's the projects that enjoy strong executive sponsorship but don't really add a lot of value. Those pet projects tend to die quickly and quietly without a political fuss because it's all visible. Now, this one, for example, if we look at this screen, this one represents very poor value for money, and that, if that were a pet project, that would be flagged up immediately and would just disappear. All right, so that's right-sizing resources. You make it visible and you can right-size resources and projects. So what about executive sponsorship? So once again, this is a significant factor in project failure, and one of the key drivers for poor executive sponsorship is poor project prioritization. Now, most people assume that because it's the executives themselves who are selecting the portfolio, that all the projects will be well aligned with their interests. But I can tell you from my personal experience that that is not the case. Without a rigorous value-based prioritization process, all kinds of knee-jerk projects, pet projects, goodness knows what else, get through the net. The process is more political than value-based. It's about who has influence and who's good at selling their projects. So if the projects that you select are fundamentally not that well aligned with the strategy of the business, then it's not a big surprise that ultimately executive interest fades away. Now, with Transparent Choice, your executives collaborate up front on defining what value means to the business. Projects are selected precisely because they deliver value to the business, and that value is visible to everyone during the selection process. Now, if your projects are oriented around real value, then they're going to sustain the interest of the executive sponsor. And in fact, because the projects are important to the overall vision of the executive team as a whole, then your executive sponsor's peers are also going to retain an interest, and that'll focus the mind like nothing else. So, of course, there's more to it than that. Your executives are also a skill pool like any other, like your architects or your testers or whatever it may be. They're just a skill pool, and they have a limited capacity to support projects. And if you ignore those capacity constraints when selecting your portfolio, of course you're going to end up with some executives who are too thinly stretched. So just like with other resources, Transparent choice lets you see very clearly which executives are overloaded with projects at the selections phase, so you can figure out, do we reallocate projects or do we take some of those projects away? Okay, so you're setting your executives up for success. Great. So we've talked about how transparent choice helps you align your projects with your strategic goals. We've shown how that helps to right-size the portfolio and to improve executive sponsorship. But having really clear visibility into alignment can even help with tactical decision making when managing scope creep, which is another of our top project killers. Now, the process starts with defining what your key business drivers are, and then identifying how each project scores against those business goals. Now, this makes it really clear, project by project, what the value is that the organization expects from the project. So you can then use that to drive the scope management process. At the kickoff meeting, you put that statement of this is the value that you want from the projects right at the heart of your kickoff meeting. When you're managing scope and assessing line items in the scope or change requests, you can see very clearly what is it that we expect from this project, what's the value, and you can assess the line items and the change requests against that statement of value. And if they align well, great, gets approved. If they don't align well and it's just something that somebody happens to want, but it's not really adding value, then, well, you know how that goes. So, does this all work? I thought I'd share with you a case study of a government department that we did. We did this about a month ago. This department runs emergency services, and they had pretty much all of the symptoms I've described. They had too many projects, they had pet projects, they had failing projects. Now, when they used transparent choice to do project prioritization, and they were doing it in spreadsheets and things like that before, when they used transparent choice, they were able to quickly right-size their projects and align their portfolio to the value that they actually wanted to deliver. It included killing off some pet projects that had proved quite robust to being killed off. And it all happened without any big political infighting or anything like that. It was just a natural outcome of the fact that suddenly people could see in real time, as they played with what was in and what was out, they could see which projects added the most value and what adding a project or deleting a project did to the capacity. So, next thing I just wanted to say, and this is really important, tools make a difference. Not all prioritization is equal. So, unlike most PPM tools, transparent choice is based on 40 years of decision science. That's why it works. This isn't something that we just made up. This is real, hardcore, thoroughly researched decision science. And that's what makes it work. So the product actually streamlines the whole process of collecting, documenting, prioritizing, selecting projects, optimizing your portfolio, and so on. But it's that core part of making the decision. You know, what's the value of these projects, where we leverage all this decision science, and this is what we do. Right? We're not a PPM tool trying to manage your tasks and your monthly reports and all that kind of stuff. We just focus on this part of the process, and that's why we know what works. Okay, that's the advert over, I guess. So from this whole presentation, if there's one thing I want you to remember and to share with everybody that you meet that'll have an impact on your project success rates, it's this slide, right? That there is a direct link between the quality of your project prioritization process and your project success rates. It's a direct link. There's a direct causal link between those two. And that's something that so many PMO leaders just miss. I'm sure you're not one of them. Now, our website is full of useful advice and information on how to go about putting in place a best practice prioritization process. But as I said earlier, as you learn more, please do remember, not all prioritization tools are equal. So let's get out there and change those statistics together. Visit our blog, set up a free consultation, whatever you do, take your first step towards higher project success rates today. Thanks for staying with me, and now I think I'll open up to questions.